Agus Chairli Conshahasarm Teshavam couple of Fuckler. Minister, I'd like to congratulate you on the work you're doing. And it is very challenging. Now, many years ago, about 14 or 15 years ago, I suggested that disability and that type of community of continuing care and support for people, which is not about curing an illness, but about affording people with an ongoing condition a very good quality of life, should be separated from acute medicine. It was my belief that when the argument came around the table for the money, that the Minister of Health was in an invidious situation trying to argue on one hand for acute medicine, which often gets a high profile in the media, and on the other hand for disability. And I really, really welcome that 14 or 15 years later, this decision has been taken. And I also welcome that you're the person who's been put in the hot seat, because I think you have the energy and the commitment to make things happen. Now, it is true that not only in this country, but all over the world, people were put in institutions. And thankfully that has changed, and our attitude towards disability has moved forward. But we still have a long way to go. So what we need to look forward to is a change and an advocate. Now, of course, I have a belief that it is important to have good structures, but good structures without good ministers do not of their own accord deliver anything. This idea that everybody is the same and that the service is the same, no matter who's driving it, I don't believe, because I think if I look around the world at everything from sport to medicine to politics or any other activity you look at, it's people often make the difference, not the structures. But good structures help good people to make a difference. Now, of course, no matter how you divide ministries up, you're going to have huge cross-cutting challenges. And I would say to you, Minister, that it's absolutely important that the Cabinet is collegiate, that the Cabinet fights against the tendency of departments that all of us who ever served in government are aware of, that they run at times the department as if they were fiefdoms in competition against each other, rather than one seamless part of a totality that is there with one aim in mind, and that is the common good. I have to say that there is one Minister of Health that stands out for me in the past in relation to disability, and that was Brian Cowan. And things moved forward at that time. But I have to say that in the last 10 years, disability certainly has not been high on the radar. We need to change that. I would join with those who have raised the issue about the Section 39 funding. I can't understand why Section 38 and 39 are different. That would be a quick win, Minister, to make sure that in terms of pay and structures and so on, that equal work gets equal wages. And that is important for structures, and also that equal bodies for equal work get equal amount of money to buy the services. Now, I mentioned to you last night the issue of accommodation. Now, accommodation in the past was simple. It was congregated settings and it was provided by the HSE. In the last 20 years, we've been decongregating the settings, and that was a great thing, something I absolutely welcome. But in doing that, we haven't really decided how we're going to fund them. So we've been using CAS funding from the Department of Housing schemes that the various disability organisations realised they could tap into, but was never structured to deal with disability. For example, on one hand, you're getting the standard amount of CAS funding for a house, or whatever they call all these different funds, and on the other hand, you have to comply with HICWA standards in relation to the buildings. And HICWA standards are much higher than the standards any of us would put in our own private domestic dwellings. Now, I leave it to you how you're going to crack this one, but between the three departments of health, your new department now of disability, equality, integration, young people and children, I think it is, and I'm not sure if there are a few other things thrown in there, but we call it the Department of Disability, and the Department of Housing. It is absolutely important that a dedicated, agreed process in relation to accommodation in community settings, in houses, as near as you can get to the way the rest of us live, are provided, and that the money is in a ring-fence fund, and where the specifications for that funding is matching the requirements in terms of the quality of the building. Because I have seen some fantastic examples of what can be done. There's one particular development in Galway, and it's in the city, and someday the two of us will go and look at it, if you haven't seen it already, because each apartment is individual. There are good community spaces. It's ideal because it caters for people who have quite significant disabilities on one hand, but it provides for their individuality on the other hand, and it doesn't have the appearance of a regimental system that doesn't allow for individual flair. I've only 30 seconds left. Minister, I could talk on this subject for a long time because it's something I'm hugely committed to and interested in. Can I just say that we need to move much more promptly on early intervention. We need to move on therapies. Supporting therapies for people with disabilities are very hard to get. And we need to move on that. And the final thing is this. I think all of us in this House, no matter what our political shade would say, it is absolutely cruel and hard on parents who already are faced with maybe a child with a significant disability, that they spend so much of their life advocating for basic rights and basic services. And I have no doubt that if there's anybody in this House that might be able to tackle all of that, and it is a huge workload, and make headway in whatever time this government lasts, and I think it's due to last 3.5 years, I would hope that in that time you will manage to make, and I have great confidence you will manage to make, significant progress in laying the bedrock for a much brighter future for people with disabilities.
Thanks,